What's going on, Tribe? Welcome back to another episode of the Tribe Talk series. Today's guest is another special one. He's the current Ecuador number one. He's number 20. He finished number 20 in US, and he finished world number 803 for the 21-22 season. Warm welcome to the show, FPL PAZ. How are you today, Ringman?
Hey, how's everyone? I'm doing well, man. Just hanging in there, enjoying the off season for sure, enjoying the downtime, waiting for the new season for sure.
Yeah, and this is what you do. You blog. You're a blogger yourself, and tell us something about that.
I started the blog around March. I'm doing well this season. I was in the top 50K and things like that, and I was just doing all the work. I was doing the research. I was doing the underlying
Right.
stats. I was doing all these things, and then I'm like, you know what? I was listening to so many podcasts, and I'm once I got to the point that I found myself picking players before them. I was like, you know what?
Right.
I can just start putting these ideas into paper, and then I'm like, hey, let me just start a blog of players to buy and sell, and that's how the idea began. I went live in game week 30. I started
Right.
before just to get an idea how to write it, but yeah, then it picked up some good steam. It's gotten over 7,000 7,000 views in only 8 game weeks, so it's been picking up pretty impressively, and it's going to continue next season. I discussed some strategies. I laid out the tools
Mm.
for beginners. It's how to look at price rises.
What does it feel like? So let's say if you like give a call, let's say buy, for example, Jared Bowen for one game week, and let's say sell Saka for the same game week, and if the opposite happens in terms of the players performing, so how do you really take that into stride?
Yeah, no, like the good calls and the bad calls definitely are things that you're very proud of the good calls and you try to forget the bad calls.
Right.
Funny enough, I usually just laugh at the bad calls, and I'm just kind of self-deprecating humor, like, hey, look at this guy. Most
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
people are like that. You gotta take it with a grain of salt. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's a guessing game, right? We play FPL just like you do. Try to get the most information and make the best decision
Yeah.
possible. Sometimes you try to you're your hardest critic, so when
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
I try to be have an easy mind on it though.
You finish 803. How was the season?
A great season, making great calls. Definitely up and downs in the season, but I think and it's I always thought I had perspective in it. So when I started the season, I just wanted to be top 100K, right? And then
Right.
but the bad part is that sometimes that line becomes more and more as you start going. So for example, when I got a top 50K, all right, let me push to top 25, and then I'm like, oh crap, I'm here. Let me push to top 10K, and then when I'm in top 10K, let me push to 1K. So uh, it was a great season, up and downs, and then usually when you do have the bad weeks, you kind of put things in perspective, and you're like, hey, you wanted to
Hmm.
be top 100K, you're top 12K now. Like it's all things being equal, you're having a good season, so it's not too bad.
It's a game where you will see red arrows, you will see green arrows as well. It might be 60-40, whatever the percentage is, but it's the way you kind of get back after a big red arrows or a series of red arrows. Uh, Obviously, you had a great finish, as you said, your 803 rank, and has been your best season till now. So what exactly have you done differently this season?
Yeah, so when I started, first of all, have time, right? You have to have the
Right.
time to put into the work. So I last year, I started working full time, and then I was working from home, so I have more time to, hey, I can watch most of the games, I can put them on TV, I can listen to a bunch of content. So I'm like, you know what,
Right.
this season, let me try to push 100K. And then I started getting involved, like, oh, people in this community actually take this game for real. So I
Right.
didn't know about all these things like FPL community and all podcasts and all that. So I did some
Right.
research in the summer, and I'm like, oh crap, there's a lot of people that enjoy this game and try hard. So I started watching some podcasts. I started picking up some tips. I started my blog. I just started to study the game. For sure, listen to as much content as I can from the people I trust, and then underline data basically, and watch every single highlight, every single game. So that
Right.
really helped me a lot.
And I was just speaking to Brett in my last week's episode, and he mentioned that it's there's a lot of content these days around in the FPL community. You cannot sit and try to go through each and every one of them. Obviously, it's going to confuse you. Then you need to pick up your 3 or 4 best YouTube channels or Twitter handles or whatever it is, and just who you can really resonate with, and just follow them, or and just then get the information and make your own decisions at the end of the day. So you mentioned obviously a lot of good things you did to really have this kind of a great season. So how about hear from you what managers going forward, or let's say new managers who will be joining the community next season, or who have not had a really satisfying season this year, or what's the 3 or 4 things you think they should avoid, and how not to really play this game?
The first one, definitely don't be too reactive. There's plenty of times I see on Twitter, or other people in the community, or like family members who play this game with me. They're like, this player sucks. They blanked 2 games in a row. I need to transfer now, right now. But if you put things into context, just sit down, think about the process. Sometimes you have a whole week to think about this player. So
Yeah,
don't try to force players out because you need to, or don't be like, hey, this guy blank, let me just force him way out. Sometimes people take unnecessary hits because of it. They're
yeah,
like, for example, I'm not sure, like Ronaldo scores a hat trick, right? And then you're like, all right, I need Ronaldo in my team. Let me just take a -4, take this player out to fund the Ronaldo move or fund the Kane move. But in reality, you sit down, you don't really have to take that hit, because at the end of the day, that's a -4 that you're taking. So definitely, I think that's the first thing I would say. Don't. So, I mean, an example for me, of a thing I did was when Son was blanking in from game week
right.
26 and 30. All these content creators were like, hey, make the move for Kane, take out
Kane, yeah,
Kulusevski,
yeah,
big moves like that. And then a lot of people just listened to that because they were like, crap, I need to get Son out. He's rubbish. Or Rafinha when he was doing bad,
yeah,
you need to get him out. So just sit down, think. Sometimes there's other fires to put out. So sometimes you have to make a priority list of the actual things you need to work on your team before just forcing a player out. And one thing going off that as well is that sometimes people judge the outcome and not really the process. Like,
exactly, yeah,
and being reactive it's a part of it. Just know what got you there. Look, hey, if you like this player because he has a good fixture run or he has good underlying stats, don't quickly forget about that only because he blanked once or twice. I remember I
exactly,
wanted to do
yeah,
that for Jared Bowen from game week 16 to 18. He didn't really do that well, but I'm like, hey, I brought him in for the long haul, 10 game weeks, and he ended up working out fine. Another thing that not to play FPL, and you mentioned this already, and it's not good to say it as someone that wants to work on content and things like that, but it has to be said, is do not allow the unnecessary noise in.
mm,
It's hard to listen to as many, there's so much content out there. There's so many things, there's so many Twitter spaces, there's a bunch of Twitter, the community is huge. So sometimes you're on a Twitter space and you have all this research, you've done all this research, and then someone, a random person you don't never met on the Twitter space, says that's a bad decision, and you're like, you start second
yeah,
guessing yourself.
yeah,
So I think that's not a good way to play FPO. I think you mentioned it, very well earlier. Don't pick the people you trust. Pick 3 or 4 or 5 sources that you like,
yeah,
and just listen to those people. If you're looking at underlying data, pick 1, 2, or 3 different of the same objective data, and just follow that the whole season,
correct,
and
correct,
trust yourself. At the end of the day, it's your team, so no one knows your team better
yeah,
than you.
exactly, yeah, yeah,
Um, and narratives. Another thing I found about unnecessary noise is that narratives change so fast in FPL,
so
and then
fast, yeah,
people wanted to bring Havertz in game week 9, and then everyone rushed into it, or Weghorst, and I fell into the Weghorst trap in game week 27, into the Dennis 23 or 22. I forgot which one it was. Um, so those are things that you have to trust the process,
yeah.
and follow your own advice.
A team which has not been doing well in a season, whether they have a double game week or a triple game week, I'm not getting that their assets for sure, unless uh, no, there is no unless. So I'm not just not getting it for this. It's a huge learning for me. Yeah,
And content creators do play a part in this. Like,
yeah,
they bring into a light about player, and then everyone jumps on that player. and then it becomes a whole narrative, and then people start looking at effective ownership and all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
things, and they start getting the fear, and that's when the unnecessary noise comes in, and you're
right.
like, crap, I better. And this happened to me. I'm speaking it from experience. It happens to the
Yeah,
higher ranking players. It happens to the low. It's just you try to. I think if you eliminate most of that, you have a better season at the end. And it's
absolutely.
something I'm gonna take away for next season as well. Hopefully, I do as well. And I feel like not being too stubborn is another reason. If you're too stubborn playing FPL, it's never a good thing. You need to be flexible. You can't just
Yeah,
have set rules that you're like, um, I'm never gonna buy a player from this team, or I'm never gonna uh, you know play five at the back. Some
right.
people before only said, "Hey, I only have three defenders," and then invest my money forward. Things change so fast in FPO. Like I think if you're set on like free hit 30, and then you look at that and you're like, "Oh crap!" That happened to me. I got to game week 30. I have free hit left, and I'm like, "Oh, I have 11. I have 11 players or 10 players. 'Cause I think Rafinha was
Mm,
out." And I had a good team, and I was like, let me just play with them, and I think it's going to be a higher upside if I free hit in a place that I'm not well set up for. So I feel like don't always have the always. If you always say always or say never, like I never do this or I never do that, I think
right.
that's just a recipe for disaster in FPL. Things change so fast. Um,
Absolutely.
don't Another thing I've noticed a lot, some people like, I'm never gonna transfer Indina because he's a troll. So
Right, right.
but then free hit 37 came along and everyone had Dinya. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you need to be flexible with your decisions, and going off that, don't just be different to be different, right? Be flexible, take control of your team, and that way, those are just basic rules to apply, and you need to
yeah.
remind yourself consistently.
So I started looking at 38. So I started looking at the history of Game Week 38 for the last 6, 7 season. I made a thread as well in terms of it's a very high scoring game week, so on and so forth. By 31, 32, I decided that yes, I am using my freight in 38. I missed out on 36. I missed out on 37. The KDB halls or the Wadi hall and so on and so forth. I used the freight on 38. Just got fixated with it, and it turned out okay. It could have been better. So yeah, so that's an ideal example of thing just kind of being stubborn for 6, 7 weeks and not being really flexible.
Chip strategy was a huge thing with being flexible this season.
Yeah, yeah,
Out of nowhere, people I fell into the trap of wildcard 26. It ended up working out at the end, but I feel like I was flexible enough to understand why that was a good strategy, or understand, the result was not there, but I don't regret doing it. It set up my team well until game week 33. So, for those 50-50 calls, I think you
right.
should go for your gut, and you should definitely follow the people that you've trusted all season.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've spoken a lot about your season. So we're going to specifically look at your second half of your season. The reason we are discussing the second half, which is from game week 19 to 38, is because you hit 10,000 in game week 19. From game week 20 onwards, you hit the 4-digit ranking. You started getting into the top 10K. Uh, you know, 3,306, 3,388, and then this is the phase where from game week 28 to game week 37, where you were like stuck in 1,000 to 2,000 rank. Uh, the question is, uh, what was it like? Because you were not able to get out of the rut. You were not even falling back into 10,000, so that you knew my decisions are not going well. So what was the experience like?
Man, the experience is great. Just because it felt like validation, that kind of pushed me also to start doing content, because I was making the right decisions, right? Because
Right,
when I was looking at the community, on Twitter, I didn't join Twitter until March, as well. So I followed some content creators on my personal account, but I didn't make an FPL account until March.
right,
Um, but I definitely saw a lot of swings between people. So I saw people falling from, like you said, early, like if I fell from 6,000 all the way to 25,000 in one game week, but I was only falling. Like if I fell, I felt like 1,000 or went up a little bit. So
Yeah.
I was making good decisions. The experience itself, being in the top 10K for what 18 game weeks, is very stressful. I would
Yeah.
say
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very stressful. It's a lot of pressure of people. You know, you feel like you have to, and this is just a feeling, and it's something I learned. It's you don't have to get every single call right. You just have to get,
Right.
trust the process, get a few calls right, but don't get more right calls than bad calls, and you'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
just fine. What finally got me into the top 10K was a risk that I took. I took out Salah because I think Liverpool was blanking game week 19, and then they
Mm.
were playing Leicester and they were playing, I think, Chelsea. So I took the risk of taking out Salah for Son, and obviously my risk, or the risk versus the reward, was I'm banking on Son outscoring Salah for those, because he was going to African Cup of Nations
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, in the next 3 game weeks, I'm gonna take my chances that Son would outscore Salah. And I captained Son twice in those two game weeks.
Right. Right.
I got lucky with Salah missing the penalty against Leicester, and that's just
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
game. That's just part. That's the risk you take. It's
Yeah.
the risk that you're willing to take to get to that spot. I also, in game week 24, I captained Diogo Jota against Leicester when he scored a brace, and that was fun. That also got me, took me into that range of top 3K. And this was a little disappointing. I knew at that point that I was gonna stay in that top 10K just because of the chips.
Right.
You're using a bunch of chips. You're gonna stay in there. The worry was what's gonna happen after that. What's gonna happen
Yeah. Yeah.
when more people start using their chips. I was definitely worried when Salah had. I didn't triple captain Salah, and you like you said, you that was a bad call, but I didn't fall that much because my wildcard team was really good. So
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't bad. And then free hit 27 was not good. That was not a good
Right.
free hit week. But then my bench boost got me 30 points, 29. I think I made one of the most important transfers of my season was beef. I took out Rudiger for Robertson, and Robertson just smashed it that
Mm.
double game week. So that
Yeah. I
was a
think
great
his
call.
his last 9 to 10 game weeks were just special. Yeah. How did you get along on the whole Alonso versus James debate?
Yeah, so man, James was an interesting one, and just kind of backtracking a little bit. The reason why I
Yeah.
saw defenders just having so many avenues to score points, they went from
Mm.
clean sheet, assists, goals, playing for good teams. So that was
Yeah.
definitely a good thing. Some people got James after, and then I didn't have James until 31. I almost got him
Right.
in 28, and it's one of the things I regret the most this whole season was not getting him in 28. And yeah, game week 28 when I think he got 18 points against Burnley. I got
Yeah.
Rudiger that day, and that's
Same. Yeah.
one of the things I allowed. You know, since I had never been so high in that rank, I was trying to play it safe. I'm like, hey, let me just play it safe, get Rudiger. He's gonna probably get a clean sheet. Maybe he gets a random assist, which I doubt, but he can still, he takes some shots from far away. Um, and I got him, and then James absolutely smashes it. So I'm like, crap, that would have been a good one to have.
Right.
And I didn't.
And I
I
and I remember I was watching that game because I did not have James myself. It was, I think, 0-0 till halftime, if I don't if I recollect properly. And I was happy at the halftime. Okay, clean sheet is coming for Rudiger. James hasn't done anything. And then I think from 51st or the 52nd minute to 68th minute, till the time he got subbed off, he just had 2 assists and a goal. That was just that was just crazy.
Yeah, and the worst part is that my just going back to Hannah, I was trusting the process of like he's just
Yeah.
coming back from a hamstring injury.
Same,
You don't
exactly, same.
know.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. You are obviously you are Ecuador number one, and you were born in Ecuador. Now you obviously have been living in US, so you were number 20 in US, and the FPL being won by an American obviously is helping. It's so how is the community really building up there? I see a lot of good accounts like Black Wolf really trying to get people together. FPL meets obviously is a big one. So how's it going along?
Yeah, I think for FPL USA, definitely huge huge credit to them and Black Wolf, Theorist,
Yeah,
Patrick, Conte, Wrangler, Ryan. They all do a great job at helping smaller accounts, become more known. So that has
yeah,
helped a lot. And they, like you said, the FPL meets, they have people in different cities
right.
organizing events for us to meet. So they've done a great job, and yeah, finishing 20th in the USA was kind of surreal. I need to check how many players. I think it's around 300K, but Jamie
Yeah,
won
yeah.
in, and Jamie he's in a group chat of ours, and he's a super nice guy, and he has helped as well. So having the number one in your group chat also helps a lot, and you know has picked up the popularity of FPL. For Ecuador, it's great. I mean, finishing number one there in the country I was born in is absolutely insane. I think it was my proudest thing this season. I think if I have to rank them, finishing first there, then everything else below that, because it
Mm.
was insane. I was like, I can just have that for the rest of my FPL career. It's number one, and I'll be good with that.
No, absolutely. And how big is the community there? Is FPL big there?
Yes, but not as much. It is big, but not on Twitter. A lot of people,
Okay, okay,
the Premier League is huge, but it's
right.
not. It's not on Twitter. I did meet with the guy that finished second. I do follow him on Twitter. He's a cool guy, but I don't think it's not as huge as FPL USA or
Brother, thanks a lot for a great time, and you had a lovely season. I hope to follow you and your buys and sells. For all our listeners, I think I will be pasting your website as well. It's on your Twitter bio as well. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
Hope
No,
you have a cracking season again next season.
I hope so. I think. If not, hey, I had it one year. Yeah, I think that's my goal next season. Prove that it wasn't a one-shot wonder. But
Yeah.
it's been fun joining the community.
Thanks for your time. You have a great break, and we shall connect sooner or later before the season starts.
Appreciate it. Thank you again for having
All
me.
right. Thank you. See you.